Hello, everybody. I am here with Oshri, and he is the author and illustrator of a bunch of children's books. I have three of them here, and I just read them actually. I read them. Two of these, I reread them. I read them like twice, and because I was imagining being a parent reading it to a child, right? You would read it over and over and over again. So I was like, I'm gonna read it again. And they're so profound, like being like the adult reading this, just imagining reading it to a kid. They're very conscious. I'll hand it over to you, Oshri, in a second. I just want to
Yeah.
tell everybody about this. The child in me. So this is about like people's inner child and being able to recognize that everybody has work to do with their inner child. You know, like this is a person hugging their inner child. This one's called Earth Breathes, which is really interesting. I actually got this like 1 or 2 years ago. Oshri sent it to me. It's about breathing out the disharmony and breathing in the harmony. And then Listen to the Land. This book is amazing. And there's more I want to say about all of these, but this book is about two flowers. They're of different colors and they hate each other. And by the end of the book, you realize that they've never even looked at each other, they've never been able to even see each other.
Hmm.
And it was the sunlight, the earth, the land that got them to see the unification of them both. So welcome, Oshri. I loved the impact these books have had on me in a
Oh,
short time.
thank you so much. Thanks for receiving them and presenting them in that way. I really enjoyed working on them. And also so two of those I illustrated, and one of them, Earth Press, my friend Andrea Garcia Ceballos, she illustrated that one. And interesting tangent, she lives in Spain, and my Spanish, I don't speak Spanish, and I actually think her English is pretty good, but she's not comfortable speaking English. And we had never had a full conversation, but she gets all the writing. So she used Google Translate for my words, and then she
Wow.
illustrated it immaculately. And then yeah, so I illustrate maybe 75% of the books I put out, and then when I really love an artist's work, I'll reach out and ask if they're interested in working together. So yeah.
That's amazing. I actually this morning I was like, this book looks different. But
Yeah.
I just thought that you evolved in your art in the last year or
I
two.
mean, I hope so, but that's not why. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So back to what I was saying about like for me it was like this book is like who are you making them for? Like are you making it for the children? Are you making them for the parent? Because I was
Yeah.
like, this is amazing.
It's a good question. It's also something that makes it like kind of interesting and tricky and funny when I reach out to bookstores because they don't know like where to put the book sometimes. I have this other book here. It's called Stay Alive. It's about suicide prevention, and this book is Andrea also illustrated it, and I thought of this book when I was going through a really dark time, essentially, and it was about 3, 4 years ago, and just I was on a walk, and the thought made me laugh. It was like, oh, I could write a book called "Don't Kill Yourself," and then I was like, well, I maybe need to change the title a little bit, to make it a little more like in the direction we want to go. Let's stay alive. And it was kind of a joke, but then a friend of mine, I told him about it as a joke, and he said, well, when he was in high school, he had had a lot of suicidal ideations, and I should actually make the book. So I said, okay. And so when it comes to age, a lot of it's for adults and it's also for kids. There's some like that topic for Stay Alive. I don't recommend for kids under like middle school, maybe. Um, but I always like to think that with children's books, you're writing for a child and an adult, right? It's often they're being read like exactly as you put it. You're imagining reading it to a child, right? And you're experiencing that. right? As well. And for me, when you write, when someone reads, a parent reads your book to their kid, it's very sacred. It's very honoring for me because they're literally bringing your words into the being of their child and into their family circle. They're welcoming your voice and your sounds. So really write it for everyone. Some of the books are definitely like The Child in Me. You could read it to a kid, but the title also kind of excludes that it's a children's book because like a child would say, well, of course, like this child in me, I am a child. So, but also, and just tell me if I'm getting too off the rails here, but I feel like not only are we facing like quite serious challenges with wellness, with youth, and mental health. But there's also this, I mean, adults aren't, by and large, a lot of adults aren't doing great either. And there's an ability through the medium of children's books to reach that child inside because it's so distilled. You know, I'm just thinking out loud about like the memes and half the stuff people send each other online on Instagram. It's usually it's often not like a big article. There's a need to be able to distill information with the overload that we receive in this era. That I feel like children's books are just a great medium to put profound messages in, and it's also a great exercise for me to say like, well, what do I really mean? Because I can't take 100 or 200, 300 pages to write this. I have to distill this message, and I have to find the visuals that are going to help help ingrain it as well. And so it's kind of it's an interesting exercise, an interesting question. Who are they for? I like to say ages 2 to 202.
202. Yeah, because like you said, distill it down. It's the simplicity of the message. I mean, they're short, right? It takes 5 to 15 or 20 minutes to read it. And then there's the pictures, and there's so much information. And then there's even like the multidimensionality of it. There's what the words literally mean, and then there's what it means to the reader. And the potential for reflection on these messages are really profound. And so I'm super happy that you're here
Thank you.
doing this, and that you're here doing this interview.
Yeah.
What got you into this?
Yeah. So I've been an artist my whole life, and since I was a little kid, I've loved to draw, create, sculpt. Um, when I was in my early, I mean, this is distillation because I feel itself because I feel like when we're doing something that we feel like this could be what we end up doing the rest of our lives, then there's a big story and many many like paths that lead into it. I also love writing, and I've written. Well, I've loved creative writing, rhyming. Um, my mom is a children's book, or no, she's children's book enthusiast. She taught second grade for like 24 years, so she would collect children's books. But someone I didn't really imagine like it wasn't when I was in high school. I had some envisionings that I would love to write like like something like a children's book for adults. There's this kind of subtle, vague visioning that happened to me, but it wasn't the kind of thing where it's like, well, as long as that happens sometime before I check out of this life, then that's enough. It wasn't like I could envision enough momentum and energy in that I could say, well, like, okay, this is, I'm creating a lot of these books at full speed and life energy. So take it to like my mid early 20s, and I'm at my first office job, first and only, which I burned out of. Believe it or not, I burned out of this job pretty quickly. But here, and I'm remembering myself like showing up in a suit and with a briefcase and kind of laughing at myself in the elevator alone. Having that moment, like, to still walk out. And it didn't take me too long to eventually leave that. But once there was a kind of compressed experience that I had there. This was about 13, 14 years ago. That came out saying, I'm just going to focus on my art and my music now, very, like, very dogmatically, focusedly. And for a couple of years, I really hustled to see if like what I could do in the art world and try to get into gallery spaces. And I was also a guerrilla artist, so what can I do there? And after a couple of years, um, I became pretty disillusioned with what art world meant. But alongside that, I had started doing these daily drawings. So this was about 11 to 12 years ago. I started doing daily visual and word art, and I've kept that up. So there's a part of me that said I have to. I don't know what I can do with this in this art world, but I know I want the sense of mastery, whatever that means. And I know to do that, you have to be consistent. So I thought, like, well, what's the like laziest thing I could do every day? And it would be like, okay, a little drawing, a little picture. Sometimes it could take me an hour, but it might take me 2 or 3 minutes too. And either way, oh yeah, this way, Instagram. And either way, I'm just going to commit to daily creating. So I started getting kind of disillusioned in the art world, and life took some turns. I think when we met, I was operating my food business, but I'm still doing these daily drawings and really metabolizing it. Well, what do I want to use my art for? And what do I have the most intrinsic motivation for? Because it wasn't getting into galleries. I just didn't have the motivation that it would take. It didn't seem very interesting. And over a couple of years, it became like I did one illustrative book about my college oboe teacher, my music teacher's lessons. So you brought so much wisdom into music and connecting it with life and how to play the oboe. And he had played with the New York Phil for 27 years. So I had to create this little cute little book about that. So I did that, and that was fun. I played the a few years, and so I had some like experience, and I made a book. It was fulfilling at an intrinsic level, and then over time, this question: what I know I want to keep making art. What do I want to do with it? And the answer of children's books and illustrated books just came through. Was that it felt like, well, that's where potentially an artist who wants to have who wants to relate with the human psyche and consciousness, that's where we can really touch in. And going back to that moment of a parent reading their child a book, often bringing those words in before bedtime, which, as a yogi, right, like we know, like this is such a suggestive space in our consciousness. So as a parent, like, right, hopefully one of the safest people that this child has, they're reading this book right before the kid goes to sleep. And like, where else are you going to be able to make that kind of impact? Like, what other tender, open, vulnerable moments? So for me, it's very sacred to create these. And then you're also offering something to the parent. I think if it's well done, then, just like me, like sometimes I read some of my books and I'm like, oh shit, I need to hear that again, So like, we're not pretending that in our grown-up stage that our child is necessarily always fully developed. So yeah, I'm kind of enamored in terms of how we can use just simple words, pictures, and like kind of enchanting pictures to to relate to, heal the psyche, send love to it, and expand as as your podcast is named.
The oh yeah, that's right. The so you have 47 over 4,700 posts on Instagram,
Yeah,
which is a lot. And so
yeah,
you've been doing these. I remember I've been watching them evolve
yeah,
for probably yeah, 5-10 years now.
yeah,
And I remember they used to be like hand drawn on
yeah,
like a piece of paper, and then you
yeah,
take a picture of the piece of paper. Now they look that way, but it's digitalized.
yeah.
Um, and they, like you said, they each have a message. And then you mentioned that it came through. Children's books came through just for the audience, just so
Hmm.
they get clarity on what you mean by that. What do you mean by that?
That's such a good question. Let me take a moment. Let's see what comes through. Answer that.
Because we're all on our journey too,
Yeah,
and there's a lot
yeah,
of people trying to figure it out.
right. And so am I. So well, it's like there's this, um, right? Like there's the thought of having arrived, and there's reality to that, and then there's also like, so am I. Like I'm super excited. Like one of my growth horizons is like sharing these. Like I can create children's books all day. I'm not a publisher, or maybe I am, but that's like less experiential for me. So, we all have our growth horizons, but going back to came through. I think it's funny, we met doing yoga together, right? So I think you breathe, and you keep breathing as your life is happening. And, like Thich Nhat Hanh, right? He'll talk about the insight that the mindful breathing leads to insight. So come through for me when it feels like something like a life project or the big part of a life project is that insight that, okay, when I explain like deep breathing to kids, right? It's 'cause again, when I do mindfulness with kids, they ask why we breathe all the time, right? Why do we need to practice breathing? Right? So the answer is like you're activating a different part of your brain with just intentionally deep breath. That's able to uh, affect your thoughts and your behaviors and your feelings. So coming through for me is when, and we can honor all dimensions and parts of ourselves. So coming through is like one, between one to many levels deeper than it came through that I need to go get some hash browns and put them in a toaster. Like, like, and coming through is I had an idea. My imagination felt some inspiration to do whatever. That's what coming to, but you're doing it in a way that your breath is connected to it, um, and it feels somehow that you're metabolizing a reason for why, or at least a purpose for why we're on this planet right now.
There's
Yeah.
three specific pages in these books that I wanted to just read, if you don't mind. It's not giving away the whole book,
Oh
but
no, give it away. Yeah.
all right. So there's and from this book, Earth Breathes, it's this page that says, after all, separating earth, and you spell out earth, right?
Yeah.
EARTH, separating earth from breath is but a B, because B is the only thing, the only letter that's different from breath and earth, right? So after all, separating earth and breath is but a B, and I'm calling and counting on you to find a new way to be. And then there's a picture of this person entity type figure breathing into the earth, which actually it's the visual of what you're saying, right? You're intending on you gave a story of intending on a a path, and then it was breathed into you. The
Mm.
question is, do you breathe it in or does something else breathe it into you?
I don't know.
So I also want to give you a compliment because this is a book. How long have you been making these books for?
The first one I did about 11, 10, 11 years ago, but then I really kind of built some momentum about the last 3, 4 years.
Okay. And so do they all, because what I notice of these books, because you sent me that one a few years ago,
Yeah.
and then in these books, there's also something different besides the art, which is in the end, there's practices, super
Yes.
simple practices.
Yes.
And this one, The Child in Me, which by the way, the page that stuck up, it says this. I'm gonna give everyone a visual before I read it,
Yeah.
but it says a grown up who's bossy or mean may often be stressed. Oh no, sorry. A grown up who's bossy or mean may often be steered by their inner teen or even an infant in the process of wean. Which when I was like, wow, like because I went to school for psychology, right? So I know about like the latency phase and like the phases that children go through when they're developing their concept of the world, and that phase where they're breastfeeding is like a very important phase for people to build their concept of reality around.
Yeah.
And that depends on like how long they were breastfed, what the emotional states of the mom was. All of that stuff goes into that.
Yeah.
And it's a growing up who's bossy or mean. So basically somebody who's being bossy or mean, and you're essentially saying like it's not really them. It's something. It could have been something that happened to them when
Yeah.
they were younger.
Yeah.
But so this book isn't just about other people, it's also about self. And in the very end of this, which I think is amazing, there's several pages where you say it, you're supposed to record yourself
Yeah.
saying a guided meditation that Oshri put in here.
Yeah, and that's not only that. The meditation is by my friend Orly, who we created it together.
Orally.
Yeah, Orly Marquis. So she's what were you gonna say? I don't want to cut you off there.
Oh no,
Yeah,
so like that, like
yeah,
just that I haven't done it, right? Because you actually just sent me, I just got these books in the mail yesterday,
yeah,
but these two. But just reading through it, it's just like, man, this is so awesome to just be in the package of a children's book.
yeah. Yeah, it felt special, and Orly is a powerful. What's kind of cool about each of these books, they're literally like a chunk of my life, and relationship, like with different people. It's kind of a fun way of encapsulating relationships like that one. So Orly and I met almost a year ago, and she's a medium. So if anyone is looking to communicate with those who are not in their body anymore, like Orly, I mean, shoot, she did something impromptu, or she was just driving in the car and she brought it down. Yeah, it was powerful. So she had her hand in this, and it's very much in the spirit of collaboration with all of them, pretty much.
That was amazing. And this book, I mean, I mentioned it already. It's like when the flowers turn to look at each other and they realize like they have never even seen the beauty that is one another. Um,
Yeah.
and could you speak a little bit about like what inspired this? Because I see a lot of subcontext
Yeah.
in between, like the different colored flowers hating each other.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And when I wrote that book, I was crying most of the time. Like a good chunk of the time, I was in tears, and I wrote most of it in a day. after doing like a fire and music circle, and I stayed home the rest of the day, and it kind of flowed out. And each of the elements, one at a time, their voices came through, and um, yeah, it was a lot. Um, so yeah, these are two flowers in constant antagonism, right? And I have a lot of family in the Middle East. Essentially, I dedicated that book to one of my best friends and one of my best brothers, Ahmed, who's Palestinian, grew up in West Virginia here. My family is Iraqi and Iraqi, Israeli, Russian, Georgian, American. So I'm kind of a mutt. And this is one of my best friends from college, and we've known each other now about 15 years. And he's a person who, if I had to select someone who I felt like what it would be like to hang out with a twin, like that is probably him, right? And it just made me so sad, like these months where I thought, wow, like all these social, political, economic dynamics that aren't even that we can't touch in a direct way could impact our friendship just because of how, and it hasn't and it's, we're going to meet up next week actually, but um just to see like the disconnect between individuals and then entire groups of people, because there's this we don't see that, right? We're talking about that oneness. We don't experience it when we're in a place of fear, right? When there's only certain parts of our brain being activated and not others. It's very difficult. The reality that we're constructing is really shitty. It's not shitty for everyone. And there's a line in that in that book that gets repeated. I love to share, which is I don't memorize all my books, but some parts I do. They do end up sticking in me, and that's when I feel, because this is when the flowers are starting to get it right. They've heard all of this relational wisdom of the different elements, and they're starting to get it, and they say, when I feel into my roots, I see that enough of you is part of me, and enough of me is part of you. That if I refuse to care for you, I refuse to care about me too. So that is what I feel is like what we are facing as a, a species. I believe that
Hmm.
story distills a lot of what is needed as a self. It doesn't have to be through that story, but as a recognition that, hey, if we, like, violence is cyclic, there's no way to make it not that way. Every war is done to be the last one, to end whatever the dynamics have been that people are trying to get rid of. Every war is kind of marketed that way. Um, and it's not a matter of sides at all, because you go back and you point fingers in different directions, and all around different directions you point fingers in different dimensions. And also I do think maybe my specific background plays into story. Tell me when I'm going like too much into it, but
This
as
this is about you.
okay,
Keep it
all right,
rolling.
cool. Well, my dad grew up. My dad was born in Baghdad, grew up there for 7 years, and then he moved to Israel, where he lived in. They called it something else. It was essentially a refugee camp, and then he moved here when he was in his mid late 20s, and he wrote some very um, controversial stuff. He also wrote some stuff that was not, he's had a long literary and academic career. But I do think that when you come into, so here I was born like thing. I'm had it fine here. I didn't have to move when I was
Right.
7 and grow up in a refugee camp and all that stuff. But I think it helps to have it helps. You can be a bridge when you've had some element of your foundational experience that is not like, I don't know, let's just say like Oscar Mayer or like just like Lunchables, like each thing that its own little perfect container. To the degree that we have kind of a divergent experience, there's a possibility that you have opportunities to metabolize through yoga, through meditation, through mindfulness, through therapy, whatever mode is, then you have an opportunity to see things, to make those bridges, to make, you're gonna have a full Tupperware, not just Lunchables pockets, not just like little compartments, because you have to. And just to close out this question, which I think is also important, like, and those just listening to the land, how do we live together as living beings who are made out of the same soil, ultimately, of the same planet, sometimes of the same region, sometimes not. And like, we can argue about that, or we can recognize that the preciousness of it, the preciousness of life. And we're experiencing something where I think of it like maybe there's a children's book in here somewhere, but I think about it like a petri dish that, okay, for thousands of years, anything that moved along, like anything that moved in this petri dish, it was like, I don't know how fast, bacteria and shit move, but like, it's probably pretty slow, right? So that cultural and ethnic diffusion is going to happen like kind of slower, right? And then in the last 100 to 150 years, it's like someone took this petri dish and just shook the fuck out of it. And like everyone's all over the place. The fact that you and me I don't know where your ancestors is from, the fact that we're here speaking English in two
Mm-hmm.
different counties in California, it's just kind of amazing. There's beautiful and incredible potential to it. And it's like, it's something to metabolize because we come into it with histories and we come into it with traumas. And that's why it's important to have like safe spaces like created just to share, well, what are you doing on earth at this moment, that after and while the petri dish is just being shaken after thousands of years of it not being.
Amount of resonance about my concept of reality and this book, Listen to the Land, A Tale of Two Flowers, because you were just touching with the roots, like the roots touching and the elements being the voice of wisdom. And essentially, then the outcome of that wisdom is realizing that we're made of the same thing. We're not so separate after all. This
Yeah.
is the new paradigm where things like war and rape and the problems that we're seeing now, where we're as humans, like as a human species, the solutions we're coming up with is just do more of what the other person is doing to you. If they're being violent to you, then you be more violent to them.
Yeah.
And the only way that stops is the realization that there's a unity, because as you said in that line, and I don't remember the exact words, but if I'm harming you, then I'm harming me.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
that like overnight, if we could feel each other and recognize that we're all one, then everything changes. That's
Yeah.
where the shift happens.
100%. And by the way, I appreciate your posts. You've done different posts that kind of distill that message in beautiful ways. I remember one you did recently about like, I think you gave away like some vehicles or something. And I
Right.
remember one from a while ago was just you talking about how to decide like what to give in a tip. Like do you like not give a good tip because a waiter's been a jerk? Or do you maybe say like, Spider's been a jerk. Maybe he needs a big tit. Like, like, and if I can provide that, then that's who I'm going to be. And so, yeah, I feel that resonance too. And I felt that in your presentation and work and voice. Yeah.
And I do want to add that there's another practice at the end of that book as well, which, I mean, I'm all about meditation, and it's just so simple and profound. Um, just about like how to feel that unity with somebody else if you're sort of in the same room as them, which is and the way that it ties into the book too
Yeah.
is really
Which
cool.
one stuck out to you?
It's
Yeah.
it was the where you ground each other,
Yeah.
and then you're connecting your
Yeah. You
roots
feel your
to
roots. Yeah. It's fun because I started doing that. I did that a little bit, but sometimes the book can inspire the practice too. So I start doing that more now. Like, and literally, like, we could do that. Or one of us or both could do, like, as we're talking, like, my feet are on the floor. Now I'm sensing in my inner world, like, I have roots. At some point, they reach Ra's feet, in his roots somewhere in the earth. And you can remember that even when, like, you're having a random conversation. If you're talking to
wow.
family members and it's charged, you can actually use your physical body, right? And just, my feet are on the floor. I know that they have roots and my roots, and at some point they touch. And just remembering that and then having an embodiment of it through your awareness of your feet is, like, it can be very powerful. It can really shift communicative and relational energies. Yeah.
I I love the word embodiment to explain that as opposed to imagination. I usually use the word imagination, but I like how you just pronounced, like, just actually embody
Yeah.
the realization of this
That's a
of
good
this
way.
connection.
Yeah.
And I've thought about that in terms of uh like like connecting in a romantic way,
Mhm.
but I've never ever considered just doing that with everybody. Like just getting that
Right.
flow, that current going up from your root and then
Right.
even higher into your heart, into your higher centers.
Yeah. Well, it's usually when we're not feeling it intuitively that we need to remember it, or that it behooves us to remember it, right? It's like, because, if you're talking to someone who you have a good relationship with already, well, you don't necessarily need to, but it's there. That's there. You're embodying that without even thinking about it. But when it's when, like, oh, I'm at odds with this person, and all I'm seeing
Right.
is like how we're at odds, then it can actually help to say, oh, and then you can bring in that energy that intuitively. You can relate to them as a friend, as a family member, someone that your natural compassion comes through. Or I call when I work with, I do so I do work with it's an organization called NAMI, West Side Los Angeles. They're a mental health advocacy organization. They've been incredibly supportive with these books. So I give talks to high schoolers and middle schoolers about uh, it's called Ending the Silence, and how to open up about mental health and ending stigma, about talking about our inner experience. And I like doing this exercise with the students about tuning into our empathic wisdom, right? Because our ability to know what's going on in someone, and then to make good relational communication decisions based on that. And it's a skill. Um, yeah, like, adults aren't, these are children's books, but like, we wouldn't be going through all these emotional violence, physical violence, if we felt that. I'm not separating myself from the mass of humanity. Like, as long as I'm here,
Hmm.
like, my growth, like, I need to get, I can talk about it, some people can talk about it quite well and not have a realized embodiment at all, but and maybe that can be, maybe what they're saying is still helpful, but there's all sorts of reality and mixes that come through. But this is something I feel strongly that it's just an imperative to feel that oneness, that connection, that are if I refuse to care for you, I refuse to care about me too.
Is there any little sample of tuning into the empathic wisdom that you could share with us here?
Mm. You mean like from
Like from your talk, you said the ending, the silence, and that you take them through a practice.
Yeah, I could do that, or there's something else. Something else. I think we'll do it. I'll often
Let's
share
do
this with the
something
kids.
else.
Let's do something else, because this is what's bringing up, and I'm like, maybe I should be sharing this, because this was a meditation that I led, also Tsunami online, mid to late October, I think it was, and we can take like you want to take 3 minutes for it or something, and just, so you're sitting, your feet are on the ground, you're smelling your breath, and you're allowing yourself to feel a sensation of everyone in the room. So let's just say you and me, or everyone listening to this in this context, right? Everyone listening to this supports you and wants the best for you. And you allow yourself to feel supported by everyone in the room as you're always coming back to your breath, prioritizing that, which isn't easy, to hold a thought and that breath focus at the same time. And it's not a critical thing if we diverge, but then coming back to the breath, holding, everyone supports you. And then you're going to layer that with, and amalgamate that with, you support everyone else too. You support everyone in the room. You support everyone listening to this. And you're breathing with that, and allowing both of those sensations to be felt in your body. You can even, when you walk into a room, you can remember this. You're like, make a bookmark here in your body. When you walk into a room, remember that sensation. I support everyone. Everyone supports me. Keep breathing with that. And then here's where it can get a little interesting. And I don't know, it's not going to be very long. It might be more than 3 minutes. Let's see. But good. You can keep a smile to it too, right? If you support everyone, everyone supports you in the room, like, that's going to feel good. Be life promoting. Now you're adding the awareness of your ancestors and the awareness of their ancestors in the room, proverbial room. And all of their ancestors and your ancestors are supporting one another now, showing care. So your ancestors support all their ancestors. Their ancestors support all of your ancestors. Then all of the ancestors, yours and theirs, support you and everyone else in the room who's currently in their body. Their ancestors support you and them. And your ancestors support you, and bringing it into the breath, right? Keeping it there, allowing what's the sensation of that in your body, holding that and deepening into that. And here's where the first time I shared this meditation, it was everything I could do to not break down sobbing. Because then I say, you're going to then extend that awareness to children. It could be your future children, or your current children, or just children who are in the orbit of your care. And you're imagining that you care for your children and also the children of everyone else present. You support your kids and theirs. And then they also support your kids and their own. So the ancestors are also holding care for this, for the future. Children is just future, right? 3 and 4 dimensional, maybe 5 dimensional future. Everyone offering that sensation of care and support and breathing into that, continuing to breathe deeply, slowly, feeling both past and present and future, and that sensorial oneness. Just going to give yourself a physical hug. As you do that, just use your arms to hug yourself within that sensation of support of all directions on the timeline and now, and meeting that in your body. Continue to breathe and allow your body to adjust to being hugged, calming yourself, and with that ancestry, and with that future, and with everyone else in the room. And then whenever you're ready, you can continue there.
With those laughings.
No, that to me is everything, honestly. Like, 'cause that's, we look at like the Middle East and all of the story that's invested in antagonism, historical story, even biblical sometimes, right? Or scriptural stories invested in antagonism. But like, well, what if we did that? We said, hey, let's embody or practice. You're right, it is deeper than, let's realize, it's deeper than imagination. Let's realize the connection of our ancestry, right? And just feel that, wow, like, this is really precious that we're all here. It's not just precious that I'm here and you here, but it's that we're all here. And we all have that sacredness. And so, yeah, that's what I tried to put into Listen to the Land. I also have this other book I haven't sent you yet. It does touch a little on this same theme. I wrote this with a friend, James Mahaley. This is his initial idea. This is called Ockles and Wackles. And it's about these two peoples that is dedicated to people with differences and samenesses. So it's about like these characters, they don't get along at all. I illustrated this one too. It was really fun, right? So just little wood slices. And then, eventually, it goes into how they don't get along, right? A wackle couldn't care less if an ockle has no clean water, as long as the wackle has plenty to drink. All the ways that they won't treat each other well. Right? Ockles build tall fences to keep wackles out of Ockleville. Right? so that's, and then, okay, one day the sun looked down at Earth and said, you Ockles and Wackles look very similar, right? So the sun sees it, right? Ra sees it,
Yeah.
right? Right, and they both get pissed about that, of course. So both groups. So it gets really goofy and fun. So the Ockles, they decide that the sun needs sunglasses, to see better. So takes off with a pair of sunglasses for the sun, right? So the sun can see better, right? And then the sun says basically, right, no, actually, the glasses are good, and you look even more similar than before. And then the other group, they're like, well, it's because your glasses weren't very good. So they build a tower of themselves to the sun to give a new pair of glasses. And then the sun's like, now, yeah, you guys are the same. I'm 100% sure now. And then, they're realizing, and then a girl and a boy, Ockle and Wackle, they realize, I knew it, and I think there's something there, and like, children see it easily, right? Children can have, sometimes, unfortunately, we start conditioning kids pretty young often, but children are less conditioned, more malleable. So the realization all at once. All the Ockle kids and all the Wackle kids and all the Ockle grown-ups and all the Wackle grown-ups figured it out. No matter how different they thought they were really all the same. They were all slices of the tree of life, right? So that's who they are. And then they have a dance party, and then this is the last illustration. The son was happy. So it is goofy. So I think there's such a special opportunity for children's books, illustrated books, to have these. It's an important message, but there's a way to, right? There's a way to make it more digestible, and there's humor and lightness that pads it. Right? Then it's not, putting someone on their defenses in the same way. So yeah.
I mean, it's an important time to program too, because the program that they're getting from the TV and sports and even school is that there's conflict and it's better to win than lose. And there's always winners and losers. That's the program that they're getting at the 2-year-old to basically the rest of their life. That's the program that's being fed to us.
Yeah, there's the program that the adults are embodying, right? They're acting that program out, right? Like, it's like, let me annihilate you, right? It's the let me win, let me punch you harder. Even like, Marvel movies are entertaining, but it's pretty much like, let me punch you harder. Like, do you see how hard those people, like any living creature, like after just like one punch, they would be totally like not here. But there's this like, I don't know, so there's programming that comes in, and it has its own enchantment, right? Its own enchantment, because those movies are, wow, like the graphics, the seeing someone in flight, like the way you do, like, it's also enchanting. And unfortunately, there's like the hypnosis about that. It does sink in, right?
Yeah. The it's like sensationalized to such a degree that we're just like, we're captivated by that. We're literally captured into that.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, so, here's an effort. And, it's a modest effort, but an authentic, a heartfelt effort to create some other kinds of enchantments with different kinds of programming. From a humble way.
Amazing.
Like, was that? Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. Like, I don't know. I'm not saying I know what the programming should be or it is, but I know that, like, I do want children. And I know that, my friend Ahmed wants children, and I know we can do better for them. I know that we can do better for them, for our kids, that we don't want in X years dealing with the same stuff, right? Another generation, or worse, or, just, so how do we show up as adults, as conscious adults, saying like, that, and then also touching into that inner child, because the grown-ups are reading it too. And maybe we've internalized some of this programming more, but we're also quite malleable if we allow ourselves to be.
And people can order these books. I just clicked on one. Actually, I should just share the screen here. People can order these books at Butterfly on Books, right?
Yeah.
And they're not expensive. They're very humbly priced. And actually, I don't need to share the screen. But so Butterfly on Books, are they in bookstores as well?
The handful of stores, mostly they're online. That's really, I've been sharing them most. They're also on Amazon though. They're on the Barnes Noble online. So there's a handful of bookstores that have them, but here's where, I don't know, maybe this gets too much into like the back end and the weeds of it, but some of them are definitely just kids books. Some of them are not, and some are in between. and I just have to keep making them. And I'm like, okay, is eventually a formal distributor publisher going to take them? And maybe that could happen. But I just feel, you know, the flip side and the amazingness. Oh, Blog is a fun book. Yeah. Isn't it amazing? I can create these books where, if they were in a traditional publishing house, like, you're not going to be able to have, like, I mean, there's, I think, maybe 8 titles I was able to put out in the last maybe 5 to 6 months. That's not going to happen in a traditional publishing house. So I do appreciate this, the opportunity to put it out there, but it means that, like, well, word of mouth is a big way that I end up sharing about these.
Well, yeah, 5 books for $50.
Oh yeah, there's
It's
a
pretty
back. I
good.
should update that because now I finished about like 18 or 20, so should put like, yeah. But anyway, yeah, I think they're quite decently priced, and they're also on like Amazon and other online retailers. So yeah, it's kind of an incredible world where we have all this compression, this historical stuff we're working through, but there is an ability to like create like material and programming of consciousness and get it out there and share it in a way that there never has been before either. So that's what we're doing our best to meet that, right?
And I definitely see a possibility for you to be on more stages because this is a unique perspective of somebody who makes children's books that speak to all audiences on the topics that are difficult to touch in a politically correct and digestible manner for everybody. You know, you're
Yeah,
not on one side of the fence. You're
yeah.
you're you're making you're making it digestible for everybody because I mean, the sun's speaking, right?
The sun,
And
right? It's the sun. What do you never say? It's like the sun.
right.
The sun has like the huge smile with big teeth. So like, what are you gonna say?
Do you
Yeah.
have a favorite book of yours?
I really do. I don't put anything out that I don't really love and that my heart is in, but I do have, this heart. But there is a fun character that's come in recently that I really like is Ami the llama. So this here with Nami, she's a Nami llama, right? Deep breathing is my blanket, and I have a follow up to that called All Kinds of Hugs. So it's kind of funny that I don't have like proper sequels to all of them, but there's like an internal series that's being developed around this character where she says, I'll just say the poem, the song. So she basically learns this song from a tree that then she applies to her life, and the song is uh, deep breathing is my blanket, and kindness my cocoon. My deep breath weaves a magic thread through life's mysterious loom. So that's, yeah, it's fun. So I gotta get you a copy of that.
It's
I
so
honestly,
fun.
it's really, it is, isn't it? It's all, it encapsulates, this is also like, I mean, I don't know. I can't say favorite. This is also, I love this. One of my friends illustrated, Tending the Tumbling. This, I was also going through like, okay, I was going through an emotionally awful place, and I had an ulcer in my stomach for like 3 to 5 months. And in the middle of that, I'm like, this is too painful for me not to get something out of it. So I wrote this poem, like, I wrote this poem about the tumbling, right? And how we have this imaginary creature, like kind of Yoda-esque in our tummies, right? And that is our connection with our
Tumbling.
gut. So if we're feeling like lousy, right? Then we got to connect with our tumbling. We got to take deep belly breaths, right? And then it says, okay, in times of upset, you might ask the tumbling to slowly share. And by the way, tumbling is Tommy Gremlin. That's how I got that word. In times of upset, you might ask the tumbling to slowly share. Will you tell me what's all the fuss about down there? And little by little, the tumbling may open up, bit by bit, telling you exactly what's up. And eventually you can feel it out. rubbing your belly might soothe the tumlin's pout. Without the tumlin, it would have been easy to ignore. Now you know to give care to this thing in your core. So now the tumlin's like meditating, right? So like it's just so all of them are like a chunk of my life that I can put into words and like this is such a blessing. Like Gordon, the way he illustrated this was just look at the detail, character detail there that he got into. It's just like
Yeah, it's
intense.
crazy.
Yeah, yeah. So he worked on this we worked on it for a couple of years, and
Hmm.
so I don't know if I have a favorite, but I do have like very unique love for all of them, honestly, and yeah.
Okay. Next question has to do with the challenges that you've had creating this. I mean, you've manifested something that's fun, it's meaningful to you. What are the
Yeah.
I would give you a challenge, but I just want to hear from you. Like, have you had challenges and how
Yeah.
did you overcome them?
Yeah, good question. Good question. I mean, yeah, I mean, when you said challenges, I thought it was going to go to life challenges. So, like, I'm going to do a little bridge. I'll circle back. So because the challenges, is when you have a life challenge, it does, right? It can be called to meaning and purpose, and it can also be debilitating, depending on what point of metabolization we're privileged to experience, right? I think the challenge was part of it was just realizing that this is like something I need to be doing. So when I had my food business, it was very seductive. There was like a guy, someone I know was like, made a lot of money. He was like, keep doing your food business, then you can use that to fund your books, and all that, and maybe even do animations later. I'm like, I can, and I sat with it, honor, thank you for the guidance, and like, who wouldn't want to be, I mean, money can be seductive, right? And like, who wouldn't want to listen? Someone has $1 million and you don't have like near that, and they're telling you this is how you make money. That can be seductive, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
and we do like, we can idolize finance and money in just this world we live in, right? I mean, if we go into the wars, like that's a lot of the reason this shit's happening. Like there's people that are like they're able to send their kids off to college because and support that because like they designed a bomb, and it's like it's real, and like you want like wow, let's hold that for a minute. Right, someone is, maybe it's not just the fat cats, but it's also the designers, all these people that have industries depending on them, right? Like, we want them to send their kids to college, right? But, right. So, anyway, money can be seductive. At this point with my feed business, I was like, I just couldn't. I really didn't have it in me to keep making it was like a healthy confectioner we were doing. And I couldn't do it with love anymore. It was too much. And so like talking about embodiment, this is not what my body was asking for. Um, so I had to listen to that. And that was hard just saying no when you feel like, well, I shouldn't be like telling someone no who has a lot of money and knows what to do. But so that was a challenge point. And then, thankfully because it is a lot of these are some, they do include some raw processing. Like I had my older brother died almost 10 years ago, uh, and that was a challenge that I feel he's very present with me. He was suffering a lot during his lifetime, and that was a challenge. And there's thinking about emotional stuff. Here's something kind of interesting. Is anything about guilt? Like, should I be creating? My brother was extremely brilliant, extremely creative, not able to create. There's some guilt there that could be debilitating at one level of perspective and metabolization, right? Um, But then when you there's a level of like persistence of commitment. Like, no, I told myself I was going to keep making a daily thing, so I'm going to keep doing that. If I need to integrate and incorporate that experience of guilt, loss, grief, upset, then process, then okay, but I'm going to keep going. And then about a year, almost a year and a half ago, my brother visits me in dreams, like not very frequently, but kind of like when I need to or when he needs to. Visited me in a dream where, towards the end, we were having a good hug and like a little cry. Towards the end, he said he was actually got very bitter. And he said, you got to write books. Or our dad got to write books. That's why the dad wrote a lot of books. And you're getting to write books now. And I never got to write a book. And I want to write a book with you. And so he showed me this manuscript. When I saw the cover, I started to subtly wake up just in time to like remember and have some cognizance and lucidity while this still by. So I like typed it into my phone, the title of this book, and it was powerful. It was that I'm gonna actually just say the name because it's something in progress, and I feel even though it's not totally written yet, it's special and it touches on exactly what we're talking to. And maybe it'll be a little kick in the butt for me to just like reconnect with him about finishing this book. And it's called The Pompeian Times. And right, Pompeii, Mount Vesuvius, right, the eruption, this volcano, right? It's about how we're in these Pompeian times. The volcano is not necessarily this physical, like, earthbound volcano that's in the crust of the earth. It's this volcano that's in this collective consciousness. Now we can see it. It doesn't when you see mass shootings. We remember Columbine, right? When that was like an event that people mourned for like over months and a couple of years, right? And now these things are happening on a more than daily basis, right? I mean, my brain can't really digest that. I'm just saying that like I feel disoriented, right? So we're living in these explosive. There's a volcano that's rumbling in our spirit, in our inner world, and then the question is like, where are the vents? Where can we create or provide vents so that they don't have to come out as destructive eruptions, but we can let off steam and in a healthy way that there's not this wake of total annihilation and destruction. So that's the project. I got the broad strokes from my brother Jacob. Like started writing on that. So it's how do you take how do you take someone like you lost a family member and you have to create I'll never stop feeling grief over this for the rest of my life. But how do I take it as a creator and someone who cares and wants to honor like everything I'm handed in my life, be it grief or be it pleasure and joy, and how do I make something out of it that might be helpful, that might seed life, at least inner life.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. And then there's also the 3-4 dimensions of like, fuck, how do I get this book there? Like, I don't have the distribution of like Penguin and all that shit. So there's that stuff too. That's the challenge. But that I feel that's been met over time with especially this work with NAMI. Who I mentioned earlier, incredibly supportive. And they've been supporting me while I make the book. So I'm not like, I love selling the books, I love sharing them, but also my having an income is not dependent on how I hawk my wares. So that's actually incredible, just to have someone that's supportive of the creativity that like I'll be able to create them. I don't have that kind of existential threat that you have like if you're like food business is really common. Like you're on this, people have been, and I mean my bars had a great shelf life. I can imagine like someone who sells like homemade salsa. Fuck, and you have to sell it within a week or something. It goes bad. Like I can't even imagine. So yeah, I mean, there is like we talked about worshiping money, but there is that need to be able to ground and to have sustenance, and I think you find that over time, and when you keep going, you gotta be persistent. Even the job I have now as maybe a prompt. I thought that I connected with the organization really well. And then I think they got busy essentially. And I got disheartened because I was like, oh, they're not like responding to my emails. Maybe they don't actually want to work together. And then I had a conversation with someone and they said, well, maybe they're just busy. And so I sent another email like, maybe. Like I have nothing to lose. And then they offered me to work with them. And now I'm able to create this material and these children's books, which if I had been disheartened and just said, well, like, yeah, maybe they're just not interested, and like, so that was also important to go actually a little bit outside of my disheartened mind and say, well, maybe they're just busy. And from that, being able to say, to get all this support and create this material, I can say like, yeah, you should buy my books and get them. And like, I'm not gonna starve if you don't. Like, that's the big thing. Just to have that, like, do whatever you want. And also to be able to carry that attitude and embodied sensation, even when the third dimension is not showing you that. That's also an art and practice too, right?
Is Butterfly on Books a publishing company?
Yeah, that's just when I make books, they're butterfly and books, and that's the spelling is butterfly on books, but it's from this character, the butterfly, and there's part butterfly and part lion. Trying to look for a
Butterfly on.
yeah, the butterfly in. Yeah. Let me get a picture of him. Hold on.
The reason why I ask, we can wait.
Yeah. Yeah. This guy. This one. Do the butterfly in.
Oh, that's one of the covers I saw.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
The reason why I ask is because to me, it seems like everything that you need for this thing to blow up and to scale is already there.
Yeah.
It's just a question of it happening, which from my perspective is a matter of you envisioning it, you envisioning the blow up, because the books are there, the content is quality, and if one person's bought, so what I've always reminded, and not that I'm here to coach you, but what I just to
I know
share.
that there's so much like one. Maybe I need to hear it too. Maybe there are other people who need to hear it too. So, well,
Yeah.
I'll take that from the coaching session.
What I've always, this is more just me sharing my perspective, but yeah, what I've always reminded myself is that if there's one person that's willing to give me money as a customer, then I'm already there. Like if one person's doing it, then it's just as easy for 1,000 or 100,000 or 1,000,000 people to see value just as this one person did.
Yeah.
And it literally is just about like, what am I doing? Am I just seeing one or 10 or 15 people as customers, or am I envisioning what this is as a glorious adventure? And I see this in your work, that this is huge. This is important.
Thanks.
And if anyone's listening to this, they like right now they're at the price point that you should go buy them all on the website, because as you grow, it might not stay as cheap as it is. But I would
Yeah,
highly recommend anybody listening to this to go to Butterflyin. So it's Butterflyin
yeah,
books
but you can spell it for spelling. Just say butterfly on, and you'll remember the spelling easy. Yeah,
and
yeah.
set up my invitation is to set up an affiliate program as well.
Mm,
Um, that could be, there's so many people out there that are influencers of parents,
right.
and maybe they influence the parents because they make recipes for the parents, and that's what they're selling. But they also would want to recommend children's books. And
Yeah.
if you had a way for them to recommend it in an easy way where they get a little split, then they're going to do it. And that's what I mean. Like everything's here. It's just a matter of clearing the path so that it can
Mm,
flow into being.
yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, I do feel, I mean, one, I do have that intrinsic property that it's just fun for me to hold the books in my hand. But I also
Yeah.
feel strongly connected to this, like in my lifetime, I do want to disseminate and distribute these widely because it's not like, yeah, because look, I'm just look at the world. Like, we need a reprogram. And it's there's a call that I feel like I've been able to make gently and consciously with each of these books from a different angle. So I do feel like it's part of it. I'm excited. I also love, for anyone listening too, if you're like, I love doing book readings too, and I'm really excited in the beginning of May. I'm gonna get to read. This will be you're talking about blowing up. I don't know what will happen, but I'm gonna get to go to a school of like 450 kids and like read a book to all of them like at an assembly. So that's just fun. I mean, it'll be like kindergarten through eighth, So I mean, I could see that happening. I could also see some of these being made into film and animation, and I got really here's a tangent, but I can't not say it because I was so inspired by about a week ago. I saw this movie I'd never heard of. It won an Oscar though, called The Tale of Princess Kaida. Strongly recommend it. Have you heard of it?
No.
It's so good. Really beautifully animated book or movie, and soundtrack was just fantastic. And that got me going too. And like, yeah, film is also a really powerful medium messaging, and that was just such a well-made movie. And then I can start putting my music in it and stuff, which I do too. And there is one. There's an. I wanted to say also on through my Instagram, it's easy to find on the link tree, but there's an animation I made for the Listen to the Land book, which some really talented musical friends sat in on that. So I narrated the book, and it's kind of like a meditative narration of that book. So yeah, no, I appreciate it, and I just love. It's a real blessing when you can take like a piece of life and actually the processing, your own personal processing of it is what you get to share with people. Is you've taken, like I have been making art for most of the 37 years that I've been here on the planet. I've been making art and I've been writing, and so eventually, like, you develop that confidence to just put it out there. And it's not because you think it's so good, it's because like you don't know when you're not going to be able to anymore. But so you just better do it. So
And it's because the world needs it. If you
thank
don't
you.
do it,
Yeah,
how many children are going to go without these stories?
that's it. Yeah. And that's an important too for, I don't know, I feel like your audience, maybe people who share energies of consciousness in whatever form. And I feel like that's really important to remember. Like before you receive that, whatever you feel like that external validation is, to be passionate and steady, allow for slowness of development and seed to grow, because like, there aren't mistakes. Even if whatever you're working on now, whatever it happens to actually, it, like, we just have, like, what a friend says, the path is wiser than the walker upon it, right? And it's not a mistake that you're doing whatever you're doing. If you're doing something to help reprogram adults or children, and you feel like, why don't I get paid the same as someone who's like a drop shipper for like, this like
Yeah, trading
whatever.
Bitcoin.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, just keep hanging on to that, because it's what you're doing. There is value, and just to recognize right, and without the angle of like, well, I don't need money and pushing it away, but just saying like, there's a reason why I'm here. The reason I'm brought to this moment, that I have this idea that no one else does it in this form, right? There's 8 billion people in the world and so much dysregulation. Like, even if you see health food companies, you see influencers who talk about health, who are already, for whatever you think is look successful, like, they're not touching the 8 billion in a big enough way. Sorry, like, it's like, everyone has to expand. So it's, don't feel belittled, there are spiritual teachers that they're doing enough. My voice is not relevant because they're preaching the wisdom. Well, that apparently is whatever is happening at this moment. There's still a lot. I'm not trying to call in like destructive realities, but I don't have to say much to look at like where the world is right now, until like, yeah, it's not going to hurt to have more voices of peace and of consciousness and connectivity and of breathfulness and awareness. So that, I would say, that's something that I've had to remind myself a lot of over the years, of like, yeah, this, I don't know, I don't feel the world meeting this in the way I want it to, but I can't stop now. I can't. And if I had like this book that I'm going to read to 450 kids, like, I'll tell you, like, the story, because all of these books have intimacy in them. They, I hope I can also maintain my emotional grounding in this, because a week before, basically that book, it's the book I'm going to read, is all kinds of hugs, and so all the ways you can hug people, right? It can be the way you look at them, the way you smile at them, or just the way you share silence with them, or by giving them something, or by receiving something, right? All these ways we can give hugs. And that story was, I read it. I got to read it to my friend that I wrote Ockles and Walking with, my friend James Mahaley. And he gave me, I read it on the phone to him. He gave me one line of insight into the words and how I might be able to reshape some of the text. And based on that, it was like, then when he said that, like a light bulb went on in my head, and I rewrote like 70% of the book. And that he died like 5 days later. So this was like the last, like, of many, like, he was also a children's book author, right? So last of many conversations over the 11, 12 years that we had. And there's this preciousness. Wow, fuck. What if we hadn't had that, excuse my language, I don't know but if we hadn't had that conversation 5 days before, like, the experience of 450 kids would be different. Whatever it is,
Mm-hmm.
whatever their resonance with this book is when I get to read it to them. And whoever else ends up checking it out. But there's this calling to like how precious things are, and the fact that we can feel and we can create out of that, and we can allow ourselves to be motivated in a way that thinking like my 24-ish or 25-ish year old self that was disheartened because I couldn't get stuff up in a gallery. Right? If I had just been like, I can't get stuff up in a gallery, this is not the path for me. I'm just not going to make my art isn't very good, and that's just what it is. And I'm going to find something else to do. But just find a little thing to do every day, right? Like you mentioned, like 4,000 something drawings from that just on Instagram alone. Like find something little that has enough intrinsic value to you to keep going, and you see how like. And you kind of we can kind of give away. Now I'm not trying to coach either, but like and not you, but whoever needs to hear it. And maybe I'm reminding myself too. But like if we can give up that sensation of like the immediate gratification, right? Oh, this gallery didn't want it. 10 galleries didn't want it. Doesn't mean I'm not supposed to be doing this. No galleries want. But I've been an artist my whole life. There's another thing I'm going to share on this. Like, you cut me off any time. You know that. So this is show. But I remember when I was in my mid late 20s, and I met this guy who was a life insurance broker, and we met up for tea. He invited me up for tea, and I thought, like, I asked him. We had a little chat, and I asked him, like, how long have you been doing this? You seem like you were born a life insurance broker. You don't sound comfortable in this. And he said, it's all about a year and a half or two. Like, what? He said, and then he says, I went to school for acting. I said, oh, okay. And I thought about myself starting out, whatever that means, as really being intentional about creating art and sharing it. I'm doing it at least 20 years, by then. I didn't have a 20th of the confidence that he projected into that. And I thought, well, how interesting, right? So, right, that's part of it too. Like, how do we present ourselves in a way, and we have it embodied, not like false confidence. And now I'm thinking like, okay, probably, maybe now, like, my little bit wiser selves have been like, yeah, I can see through the bullshit with them. But at that point, it was impressive, So, but when you can build that really heart-centered and heartfelt sense of purpose, it can also, you talked about difficulties and carrying you through difficulties that we face. Yeah.
Exactly. I think we're all at that edge too, right? We're all at the edge of our comfort zone, wherever that is. But that's where there's always that edge, that pushing through it. It's just it's a choice, and it's not something we need to be doing every single day. Do you have anything else to add before we pop off here?
Let me take a minute to read it in and see if anything else wants to come out.
He is Oshri Hakak. Is that how you say it?
Pretty close enough. Yeah.
OSHRIHAKAK on Instagram. You have a YouTube?
Yeah. You can look up my name, first last name on YouTube, and channel will come up. I feel like there was maybe one more thing. Maybe there always is. So, yeah, this has been really fun. I really appreciate all your questions, and it's fun to share. And yeah, I'll say anyone who has kids in their lives, it would be like, just know I really take this stuff seriously. Like, if I made a children's book, it's because I wanted to have some kind of healing presence in your world. So, and if you buy one and doesn't resonate, I want to know why. I want to learn, because I'm in this, and I feel so strongly connected to the fact that our children are our future. The fact is, like, we're not. I think Kim Peele did a great sketch about. They're talking about like elementary school teachers as if they were NFL players and just like getting paid the same as NFL players. And unfortunately, it's not the reality. But that is in proportion to uh, value. What is actually valuable? That makes a lot more sense, right? I'm not trying to say that
Mm-hmm.
athleticism isn't a phenomenal thing to appreciate, but the fact that the future of the planet is with
Right.
kids. So, yeah. The other thing I mentioned, I have this. I'll put it up on my link tree too. It's a mental health toolbox. It has like free coloring sheets and PDFs and downloads. Um, Not downloads, like downloads like you can download on your computer, but they're from downloads from here.
Yeah.
One of them is called "Feeling It Out." It's for every emotion. Let's invite non-judgment, gratitude, and intention to open up together. So that's the acronym "Feeling It Out." And the back is a good through how to share and open up. And then the back page of that is kind of a very as distilled form you could get of what the core of EMDR and helping kids identify archetypes that help them feel resourced through a safe space, uh, nourishing figure, wise figure, um, and a protector. And also, I added one which is a joyful figure. So that's all on that mental health toolbox that I'll put on my link tree. And yeah, so fun. Thank you. I love this is like show and tell for me. So I just had a blast.
Amazing. Thank you for that meditation as well. I didn't really get to comment on that because we rolled on to the next thing. But
Yeah.
that was really great feeling the support of everybody and just the way that that evolved, and then it's giving it back and then the ancestors and then the children. That was a really amazing experience. And so, if anyone's listening, comment on what your favorite part of this episode was, and definitely make it on over to Butterfly on Books. Oshri, you're doing amazing stuff, and it's been fun watching you, and it's going to be fun seeing your journey continue on.
Thank you
Take
so
care,
much.
everybody.